and welcome to another Design Clips here at W+9. This is Dawn, and today, I hope you're not sick of seeing them because I am not sick of using them yet. We will be featuring the Southern Summer Florals 1 and 2 stamp sets, and I will be combining them today with another one of my favorite companies, Concord and Ninth. I'm a huge fan of their work and I think they complement our sets very well, so I'm super excited to be using them today. I'm going to start by stamping and die cutting all of my floral elements and getting that out of the way. I'm going to be using various pure color dye inks, and if you're interested in exactly what colors I'm using, be sure to check the description box below. I'll have a link to the blog post associated with this video, and all of the supplies, colors, everything will be listed in the supply list at the bottom of that blog post. So if you're curious, make sure you check that. Once I've got all my base layer stamped, I'm going to go ahead and use the companion dies to die cut all of these images. Then I'll be ready to add my second layer. But before I do that, sometimes the open centered dies, they are great because you can stamp and then die cut, but when you want to do a second layer of stamping, sometimes those open centers will cause an embossed edge around the very outside of your die. Also, it can give sometimes these random creases or wrinkles in the die cuts. I don't know, maybe it's just mine, maybe my die cut plates need to be changed, but I need a nice smooth surface to stamp on top of. So if I use my bone folder to just burnish the top of the die cut, it'll smooth out any of that embossing or any inconsistencies in the top of the paper there. Then I'll have a nice smooth stamping surface. This is important with this particular image because I am stamping up to the edge, and if that were embossed, it would interrupt my impression and cause it to skip, so I wouldn't get a clean stamp there. Now normally I would have stamped all of these out and then did all my die cutting. However, by accident, I kind of discovered a little trick. So our inks are dry to the touch immediately. So you stamp it, it's dry, it will not smear. However, as they do dry, they smooth themselves out and then they kind of dry back just a little bit lighter. I discovered by accident that if you wait about 10 minutes between stamping the second layer, your impression will be much cleaner and crisper, and the color variation will be much more intense. So if you look at these two leaves, the one on the right, I stamped the base layer, waited about 10 minutes, and then I stamped that detail layer on top. The one on the left, I stamped them back to back. So I stamped the base layer and then stamped the detail layer. You can clearly see that the impression on the right is much crisper, the edges are much crisper, and the difference between the two colors is much more obvious. It's like a shade brighter than the other one, even though I used the same colors for both leaves. So if this is something that you struggle with, if you feel like your colors are they're kind of drying back into each other, and this would work with any of the inks that are the same formula as ours, try letting that first layer dry completely, about 10 minutes, and then stamp the second layer and see if that makes a difference. I know for me it did. It made a huge difference. So now anytime I do color stamping layering like this, I wait in between the impressions. Here is our spiced pumpkin, or pumpkin spice. So the larger layer I stamped, waited about 10 minutes, and then stamped that center image, exact same color, and I have a full shade difference between those two colors. Normally, had I stamped those back to back, they would have just dried back into each other and you wouldn't have been able to tell that I stamped that center image in the top. So if that's something you struggle with, try giving that a try. Now I need to stamp the background of my card panel here, and I'm going to be using this Concord and Ninth, the tree ring background stamp. I coveted this stamp forever until I finally just was like, I have to have it. I can't wait anymore. So I went ahead and bought it, and I love it. I'm going to use it a lot. I'm definitely going to get my money's worth out of this stamp set. And I'm stamping on our oatmeal cardstock, so I'm using our warm wool ink, and this is a very, very soft grayish brown. Love this color. It's just a beautiful neutral. I'm using the Misty, and I'm going to be using the Southern Sentiments stamp set, another one of our newer sets. And again, I love this set. I love the sayings. I love the fonts. It's just a great all-purpose set just to send for cards for whatever reason. You don't need a special occasion to send these cards. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of put together a rough arrangement of the way I want my flowers set up. Okay, I'm lying. I'm going to set them up exactly how I want them, and then I'm going to swing that door closed and pick up that sentiment. And yep, we're going to be stamping that in, you guessed it, black. I've tried stamping my sentiments in colors, and it just, it doesn't work for me, guys. It needs to be that crisp, bold, black sentiment. And just to further drive that home, it has to be double stamped. Yeah. I don't know. Personal preference, I guess. Sometimes a third time. See, there you go. So once we've got that, we're going to live on the edge. I'm going to use this black Sumi ink to add some splatters. And this stuff right here, you guys watch. I do not even give myself time to put down that paintbrush. I'm capping it as soon as I am done because, ooh, this stuff is dangerous. Yes, we have had a Sumi ink accident in this office, and let me tell you, it does not come out. To adhere my flowers, I'm going to use a mix of foam squares and some multimedia matte. But before I adhere them, I am going to shape each element. So I picked this up from Yana Smakula, and it does really add a lot to your project. I'm going to take and use my fingers. For that center cup of the daffodil, I'm going to just bend up the edges to emulate that cupped shape. And then each of the petals, I will also shape those and bend those. If you have problems with your cardstock creasing or leaving bends, because this is a thicker cardstock, you can use any round object, like say a pen or a pencil. Here I'm just going to use a Fantastics. This is one of those little stamping foam tools. So it's got a nice smooth round shape, so you can just kind of fold and roll the elements on the edge of that, and it'll give it a nice little rounded shape without creasing your cardstock. For my little flowers here on the edge, I took one of those large leaf segments and trimmed it in half. So I've got a little 3-leaf and then a 2-leaf segment here. And I'm going to divide those between the edges. This is another great trick. If you don't need the whole image, you can trim it to the size you need, and then you can cover up any unwanted areas with other die cuts. I'm going to trim off any excess that's hanging over the edges that I don't want. And then I'll adhere this to an A2 top folding card base using some foam tape. And that pretty much finishes up the card. I did end up adding a few Nuvo crystal drops in dandelion yellow off camera, but other than that, this one is good to go. I hope you guys enjoyed today's card. Remember, if you want to find any of the featured supplies, you can find them at wplus9.com, as well as at some of your favorite retailers. You can check the description box below for a link to this blog post, so you can find more stills and more information on the supplies used. You can see here all of the wonderful dimension we added by bending those die cuts. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!